Hi, everybody. I want to welcome you to today's workshop that is being co-hosted by Village Movement California and Ashby Village. Ashby Village is really doing all the heavy lifting here. And I'm so pleased that they approached our organization to sponsor a statewide call to report out on their research on best practices for hosting a hybrid gatherings. And hybrid, we mean some people are there in person and some people are joining through their computers. And with the COVID epidemic and how things keep changing all the time, we know that having the skills to conduct Zoom gatherings is really going to help keep our members, our volunteers, our leadership connected to the very, very important work we're doing. So I want to thank everyone, especially the tech team at Ashby Village, and particularly Meryl and Craig, who gave us a taste of this during our recent held in, I think it was July. So with that, I will just turn it over to the amazing Ashby tech team. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Charlotte. Okay, my name is Hillary and I'm the facilitator for this session. First of all, would like to welcome all the different villages that are joining us today. And I want to give the name of each village in turn. And I would like you to practice your hand raising by your virtual hand raising, if you feel like it, by clicking on the reactions button and then raise hand when your village is named. And then just after like 5 seconds, just lower your hand. And if you don't do that, then Craig will lower your hand. Okay, so Ashby Village, Berkeley, California. Thank you. Okay. Anderson Village from Boonville, California. Avenidas from Palo Alto. Beacon Hill from Boston, Massachusetts. Carquinez Village from Benicia, California. Clayton Valley, Clayton, California. Village in the Ville, Columbus, Ohio. Conejo Valley, Thousand Oaks, California. DuPont Circle, DC, Washington, DC. Georgetown, Washington, DC. La Marinda, Lafayette, California. Next, San Francisco. Pasadena, California. Petaluma, California. Sausalito, Bay Area, California. San Luis Obispo, San Diego County, California, Tierra Santa, San Diego, TJ Village of Temple, Judea in Tarzana, Southern California, Viva, Beaverton, Oregon, East Side, Portland, Villages Northwest in Oregon and Washington. And there's a few people joining us who didn't identify themselves as belonging to a village. So that's 22 villages. Welcome, everybody. That's fantastic. I'd like to just start by saying a few words about where we are today and where we expected to be when we set out to create Zoom hybrid meetings. In May, the pandemic was retreating, and we were anticipating the California June 15th opening. Our members were looking forward to meeting in person. The Zoom hybrid meeting model was conceived as a post-pandemic gathering, where the majority of attendees would be in the room and a few would be joining remotely. The first goal was to enable groups to include those who had found Zoom meetings more accessible for various reasons, from mobility, hearing, vision. Okay, the second goal is to extend that community by engaging non-members in our meetings and gatherings. We thought that by mid-August, that's right now, members would already be meeting in person and requesting hybrid setups. Unfortunately, this is not the case today. Indoor public meetings require masks, and planned social gatherings such as social hour, neighborhood potlucks, intergenerational picnics have been cancelled. However, sometime soon we will be meeting again in person in rooms, and we hope this workshop will help you be well prepared. At Ashby Village, we have a team of active team of technology volunteers, and many of us have provided intensive support for Zoom meetings during the pandemic. And in May, a few of us got together to figure out how to do a Zoom hybrid. This working group consists of myself, Craig Griffiths, Mel Gerhardt, Jack Frater, Bill Graham, Pat Harm, Jack Jackman, Celie Plesek, and Howard Kirsch. And you'll see many of those tiles on your screen today. In this room today, there's myself and there's Jack next to me, this way, and Bill, who's our timekeeper. So you won't see him because he's going to be waving cards at me. And Craig is behind the screen running all the tech. So with leadership from Craig, we've been developing this model for gatherings like meetings where 6 to 12 people sit around a table. Our two objectives have been affordability and simplicity. We'll share the equipment set up with you today in recognition that your model this model may or may not fit your needs. We hope this workshop will help you envision a possibility rather than dictate a particular configuration. We've also piloted hybrid meetings to gain an understanding of how to facilitate and participate in a hybrid meeting. We'll share our tips for that, facilitation and participation, again, with recognition that your experiences may be different. Please note that although we are modeling a hybrid Zoom meeting today, this is very much an atypical situation. You have 4 of us here in the room and 37 of you on the screen. It's not how we expect a hybrid, small group hybrid meeting to be. But it will give you a small taste of what it's like, and we go through the setup with you. So if we can move on to the overview page. Right, so this is the agenda for the workshop. Okay, we're going to show the hybrid equipment and the setup, including a video and our print resources. We're going to have a Q&A after that. Each of the blocks, these blocks, will have a question and answer session. Okay, and then following that, we will have the tips for facilitation and participation, presentation, and then we'll have some more questions. And then we're going to ask you to break out into rooms for your village so that you can have some discussion with people that you're going to be working with on hybrid meetings, and then come back to the main room for the whole group discussion and more questions. And then we'll have a closing segment with our contact information, tell you a bit more about the guide we'll be distributing. And there'll be time for questions. Please use the chat if you can. Pat is going to be monitoring the chat and is going to let me know if there are items in the questions in the chat, but you can also raise your virtual hand, because the great thing about that is that your tile flies to the top of the page and I can see you easily. So with that, we are going to move on to the presentation. Oh, are you there? You have something? No, apparently not. Okay, Craig, the floor is yours.
Okay. So we're going to start out by showing you what this particular configuration looks like. In the picture, you can see we use a TV to show the remote participant to the people in the room, and the people in the room are visible to the outside world through a little webcam that is on a tripod sitting on the table, a iPhone on a tripod that's functioning as a second camera. And there's a small microphone on the table as well to capture the in-room conversation. And then there's a Mac computer that all of this is plugged into, and the Mac computer puts the video up into the TV using an HDMI cable.
Well, 1 minute, Craig. Probably be better if you take your mask off. It's a bit muffled.
Oh, okay. Right. So,
In the hand platter, I also put in a cup of water.
moving on here, I'm not sure if somebody was talking to me or not. So I'm going to present the hybrid equipment setup, and I'm going to show you a video, but before I show you the video, I'll just show you the basic components that we have involved in our hybrid Zoom setup. We have a condenser microphone, which is a fairly cheap microphone that's good for these kind of, that's what we're using today, as a matter of fact. It's good for general omnidirectional capture. We have an audio adapter, which the microphone plugs into. The audio adapter then plugs into a USB hub, and then the USB hub plugs into our computer. We have a webcam, and we have a phone, which can be an Android phone or an iPhone. We're using an iPhone today, and that can serve as our second camera to show sort of the alternate side of the table. We have a tripod that the iPhone can be mounted into. And then we have optional mixer and patch cable. If you want more than one microphone, if your venue really requires more than one microphone to be plugged in, then you can get a cheap mixer that allows you to have up to 4 microphones with individual volume controls on them, patch cable. And then the last component is the HDMI cable, which we use to take video from the Zoom computer and plug it into the in-room TV or projector if you're using a projector. So let's move on to the video here. Computer sound.
This is a video detailing the interconnect for a hybrid Zoom session utilizing one microphone. These are our components. We have one camera in an iPhone mounted on a tripod. We have another camera, which is a regular webcam. The audio is handled through a single microphone. The microphone plugs into a USB audio adapter. The audio adapter plugs into a USB port on our USB hub, which provides 4 ports. The USB hub plugs into a USB port on the Zoom host computer. And the video out goes through an HDMI cable to an in-room monitor or projector. So our cameras, the iPhone runs a standard Zoom application and connects to the Zoom session like all of the other remotes. And then the webcam plugs directly into the USB port and is the main Zoom camera locally. The microphone plugs into the USB audio adapter, and then the USB audio adapter plugs into a port on the USB hub, which plugs into the Zoom host computer, and then the video out through an HDMI cable to the TV or to the projector to allow people in room to see the remote attendees. So let's see how all this connects together. The host computer has a USB port. We need to expand that USB port so that we can plug other USB peripherals into a single USB port. That's what the USB hub is for. So we plug the USB hub into the USB port on the computer. That gives us 4 additional USB ports that we can use for our cameras and for our audio. So we take our audio adapter, we plug it into one of the available 4 ports on the USB hub. And we notice there are 2 connectors, a red connector and a green connector. The red connector is for the microphone. The green connector is for an external speaker if you want to drive an external speaker in addition to the speaker that comes from the monitor. We won't be utilizing that for this demonstration. So the next thing we plug in is the webcam to another USB port. That gives us audio and video into the USB port. And then our iPhone plugs into a USB port to give us our other camera. The iPhone can also connect directly to the Zoom session using a Wi-Fi or over the air. But the nice thing about a USB connection to the iPhone is that the iPhone is being charged while it's running the Zoom session. The other side of this computer has an HDMI port. Your computer may not have an HDMI port on it, so you may need to have an adapter of some sort that takes your video output and converts it to an HDMI. HDMI output goes through an HDMI cable. The other end of the HDMI cable plugs into either a video monitor or a projector that is used to show the remote attendees to the people in the room. So that's our connections. 2 cameras, microphone, HDMI out, and the other end of the HDMI cable will be plugging into whatever video the people in the room are going to be looking at, either a monitor or a projector. And that's our connections.
Okay, so now I'm going to go back to sharing the slide. All right, I'm going to view share.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, this is
Okay.
it, right?
So, yep, right.
Okay, and so here's a sort of an overview of what you just looked at in sort of schematic form. And here is a schematic of the okay, we're only showing the one microphone model. Okay, and so that's what you just saw. The link to the video is in the slides, and you will get a copy of this document after the presentation so that you can review everything you've seen today.
Great, thank you, Craig. Okay, so we have some questions. Pat, do we have any questions in the chat? Can you
We have a comment. Actually, we have 2 comments. One person, Taria Linella, sorry, I murdered the pronunciation, liked the video, was a good video. And then someone, I think it was, there was a question from Judy Davidson about costs, and we will be distributing more of the PDF guide tomorrow, so the costs will be in that guide. I think that's it.
Great.
Oh, the speaker was a little muted, not a little loud, not loud enough, but I think I heard most of what was going on.
Great, thank you, Pat. Well, the whole workshop will be posted on the YouTube channel, so that will allow you to both turn the sound up or use the closed captions to if words or things that Craig says you missed, and it will also be in the guide. Does anyone else want to raise their hand and ask the question verbally?
Another question came in just now from Greg's Wellbell. Would a second audio adapter be needed for a second mic? So I guess that's for Craig.
Yeah, no, that's what the mixer is for. The Zoom computer only handles one video and one microphone. You can switch, between them, but if you want to run two microphones at the same time, you need the mixer. Otherwise, switch dynamically while the meeting is going on. So as long as you're using only one microphone, you can switch between microphones. But if you want multiple microphones operating at the same time, you need the mixer.
Good.
We have a question from Liz, is it?
Yes, thank you. Does anyone have experience with the OWL device?
Yeah, no, I've heard of it, but
Yeah,
no experience.
I read about it yesterday, but it's $1,100, so it was out of the cheap part of our. It looked really interesting.
It's a camera that will seek out a voice, somebody talking, and will pan to the speaker
In a conference room, right?
in a conference room.
Maybe this is an opportunity for Craig to say a little bit about the cost of the components. I have to show the list, but just we're talking about components that are $15 to $30.
Right.
And some of the small bits are even less than that.
Yeah, let me take you to the price list here. Because one of the major objectives of this whole effort was to make sure that we had affordable components. Oh, man, share. Acrobat Reader. Oh, yeah, Acrobat Reader. That has. There's
There
we go. Yeah, okay. So as you can see that we went with a cheapy camera. The microphone is very cheap. So if you need multiple microphones, you can get away with spending not too much money on those things. The highest cost component is the mixer if you need it. If you don't need it, then you can get away with a fairly cheap configuration here. Assuming that you already have a TV, you already have a computer, and you already have a phone. An Android phone or an iPhone are both suitable for this purpose. The video mentions iPhones specifically, but a Windows computer or an Android phone work just as well as the components you saw in the video.
Okay, good.
I've
Thanks.
got a number of comments on the chats, but there's just one. Katie Brandon said she can talk about the alternative to the OWL device. So I don't know whether you want to call on Katie.
Yep, unmute Katie.
Hello, at Pasadena Village, we looked at the OWL device, but yes, it was over $1,000. So we purchased a Logitech conference cam, which has a speaker and microphone in it. It was just over $400 on Amazon. And we decided that expense was worth it to simplify the setup so that we can easily train volunteers to set up the hybrid meeting.
Great. Thank you, Katie, for sharing that. Time to move on to our next segment, but we will have time for more discussion of these things later.
Did Pat have some more questions though? Did you have some more questions?
No, that's okay. Well, I think they're all on the chat, and we'll have to maybe answer them later.
Okay. We'll move on now to Jack's segment on the facilitation and participation parts of a Zoom hybrid meeting.
Yeah, and you can go to the next slide too. Right. Good morning. I'm Jack Frater, and I'm a member of the Ashby Village technical team, but I'm sitting in for the fabulous Meryl Gearhart, who decided to practice for next week's fall prevention exercises by falling. So I'm taking her place. So welcome. So please excuse me. I'll do the best I can, but I'm a substitute. So there we have it. Let's talk a little bit about some soft skills. We've seen the hard skills about how to do the setup and how to do all of the gizmos that need to be plugged in. But there's some other things that you might need to consider when you're facilitating a hybrid Zoom meeting, which may not immediately come to mind. And those are some of the things that I'm going to discuss today. From our perspective here at Ashby Village, we've piloted 4 hybrid Zoom meetings. And we learn, I think, something each time we do it. From both, we learn technical tricks and we learn also facilitation tricks. Although we've mostly been focusing on the technical and trying to put all the presentations and the handouts and everything that we will provide to you, we have learned the hard way that there's some facilitation tips that we might learn as well when you're running a hybrid Zoom meeting. So there's some challenges that certainly come up with hybrid Zoom meetings. When I asked my son, I was doing a presentation today, he gave a combination of a grimace and an eye rolling exercise because he's gone through so many hybrid Zoom meetings where he's working. And just as an aside, where would we be now if we didn't have Zoom in our economy? Because it's really helped us out. But it does have its challenges, as anybody who's been in a Zoom meeting knows, and I'm no expert, but here we are. So you need to consider when you're doing a meeting whether a hybrid Zoom makes sense to you and whether there's some other considerations that you might use, because hybrid Zooms are not necessarily more challenging, although they're different, that's for sure. One of the things we need to be aware of is that there are going to be audio and visual and technical difficulties which sometimes interrupt the flow of the meeting. As we've just seen today, for example, you might not be able to see everyone, and like we can only see about 4 people in the lower right-hand corner of the monitor that we're looking at. So that brings in that is some considerations as well. So we learn tricks like what Hillary was talking about, to raise your hand so that you can recognize that. And as you've noticed, when the hand is raised, the person raising the hand goes to the upper left-hand corner of the gallery view, so we are able to see that person, and that really helps as well. You need to be very cognizant that you have both the people that are around the conference room as well as the people that are in the Zoom session. And there'll be side conversations that will happen inadvertently, but naturally amongst people that are at the conference room table that may not be picked up by the people that are Zooming. But then there'll be Zoomers that will have chats amongst one another as well and may draw the attention away as well. So as a facilitator, you need to be aware of that. And to constantly remind yourself that you not only have the folks that are around the table, but you have these other folks that are looking at you in the Zoom session. The Zoom session really helps, particularly with those of us that are supporting villages, because a lot of us have hearing challenges, and the Zoom session provides a really nice way for them to control and hopefully hear the speaker better. But even so, there's captions that run along the bottom of it so that you can better understand what the person is talking about. So that's a real positive note. But all meetings require the attention to the process and the norms and some of the best practices that you will learn as you do ongoing hybrid meetings, and later we'll learn techniques of how to involve others. Like, for example, if I wanted to right now see how many people were watching, I could say, well, all the people that are hearing me right now, raise your hand, and people might actually do that. And you'll have a way of determining whether you're getting communications or whether they've fallen asleep on you. Structured and overtly facilitated meetings tend to be good candidates, in our view, for a hybrid session. Clear agendas are good for any meeting, but they're particularly helpful in a hybrid meeting where you'll choose to have a lot of collaboration. A designated leader needs to both be the facilitator and certainly at the outset make sense from a technical perspective. So I turn to Craig to manage the technical issues while I'm blathering along here, and we form a nice partnership. The facilitator can be either someone in the conference room itself, or can be one of the Zoom members. There's no reason that a facilitator can't be a member of the Zoom, such as what Charlotte was doing when she did the introduction. She could presumably have run a whole meeting that way. So that's also a real positive thing, as well as we have dispersed people and this coronavirus keeps going on. So one of the things we have to watch out for is, as I mentioned, side conversations and Zoomers that are conversing amongst themselves, and to recognize each person who's talking. So if you have a small Zoom meeting, I know as a manager, it gives you an opportunity to overtly reach out to each person and solicit what their particular feedback is. And that can be very useful for managing a meeting as well. Like I said, some Zoom may not be as valid as others. Breakout rooms are not particularly useful in a hybrid meeting because you can't see the chats that they're having within the breakout rooms. So the folks will, like what we're going to do later on is you're going to go out to a breakout, you're going to discuss amongst yourselves, and then we're going to get back. But we won't be able to, in the conference room, see what you're doing in the breakout room. So you need to consider that nuance as well. Okay. So I think those are one of the things that you also learned the hard way is that when you're doing a hybrid meeting, you need to pay a bit of attention to the environment that's in the conference room itself. So you set up the cameras a bit beforehand and focus them and see that they focus on the speakers and make sure that the lighting is correct and adjust the microphone. And for us, it's been useful to have someone Zoom in early so that we can test to make sure that all the configuration works. So if you're doing the hybrid model, allow yourself some extra time to do that, and so that you'll be able to test to make sure that it all goes smoothly. Select the speaker view, select live transcripts so that you can see what people are saying, and arrange the cameras so that you can see all the required members in the conference room. Then, as Hillary did, agree upon a protocol so that you'll know that the people that are Zooming in want to get your attention, and raising the hand, I think, is a pretty logical option for that. One of the things that I've learned from doing large meetings, whether it's a Zoom or a webinar, is that although we can see the person's name at the bottom of the tile, it sometimes might be a good idea, particularly those of us in the conference room, to identify ourselves by name, because that may not be obvious if there's, say, 8 of us in the room and someone starts talking and you're Zooming and saying, who's that? Who's talking there? So it's a good best practice to start off and say, this is Jack, and I'll go on and about what I'm going to talk about. So keep monitoring the room, keep monitoring the Zoomers, incorporate process checks. Some tricks are fun, like raising your hand, and expect glitches, particularly the first couple of times, but mostly have fun with it.
Jack, I don't know, were there slides that we need to catch up on? Because we're back on structured. So, okay, here comes. So maybe, yeah. The slides that should have gone along with your talk, we'll catch up with them. But you're going participants, you're going to get all these slides later. But anyway, we have documented it.
Provides a good opportunity to review.
Yeah.
We talked about 2 facilitators. We talked about someone in the room for quality, the day before, setup of the check, and so on. Minimizing the backlighting, looking at the cameras, and so on. Next slide, please. And rename the tiles for the in-room participants like we did. Select the speaker view so that you can see all of the people. Enable live transcript. If using chat, expand the Zoom window and start recording if necessary.
One thing I would throw in here is normally we would have somebody on the outside be able to communicate to somebody who's running the show in the inside in the room. And right now, I don't have any way of communicating to Craig. Like I could have said, either texted him or somehow communicated to him that we needed to advance the slides. So try to have somebody in the room to communicate with somebody who's outside, who's zooming in, so that you can keep up with the technological challenges or difficulties. I think that's one thing that I think we should add to that list of things to think about. The other thing, Celie, who is Celie Plechik, who is Ashby Village member, Ashby Village volunteer, she's suggesting that I advise you all to save the chat, because that way you can review all of the, Merle is online and answering a lot of questions in the chat. So if we don't get to your questions, hopefully either Merle can answer them right away or somebody will answer you.
Great, can we have the whole screen, I mean the gallery now? Is this the last slide of this session? Yeah, okay, so can we have the,
Stop share.
are there any questions coming for us now? Yeah, thanks, Bill. We've got 3 minutes if we have more. Oh, there's a question from Chuck.
Yes, I was just wondering, the people in the room see the remote attendees on the TV screen, right?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Usually.
Yeah, we see you on the TV screen, yes.
Okay, and then what do the remote people see? Do they see all the in-person attendees as one tile on their screen, or how do they see that?
They see us as 2 tiles because we have 2 cameras. So we see Jack and Hillary in one tile, and somewhere we see Bill in another tile. Are you there, Bill?
Yeah.
So each camera generates a tile that the remote people see.
Yes, and if we had, 8 people at this table, and perhaps only 4 or 5 on remote, the whole balance would be different. Like in Jack and my tile, we might have 2 more people, and that's why it's important to say, this is Hillary and I think, because there could be 2 people on either side of me, and the zooming in people, the pictures would be smaller, so it's harder to tell who's speaking. It's a good idea to kind of jiggle about when you're speaking, because that draws people's attention to your tile.
Okay, thank you.
The thing about facilitating in the room and in the Zoom, now I'm in the position of facilitating in the room. I think it's the first time I've had to do that. I really miss being able to control the screen. I can tell you, I want to touch stuff. I want to put something in the chat. I want to move things around. So I can see a lot of advantage to actually facilitating from the Zoom in this situation when there's so many people on the screen, but not if there's only 4 or 5 people on the screen. Any more questions? Any more raised hands? Okay, so we move on from the tips to the breakout groups, and Jack is going to introduce the breakout groups and what we're going to ask you to do, and Craig is going to put the guiding questions from the breakout groups up on the screen. Craig, slides. Next slide, please.
Yeah.
Well, as we said earlier, as Jack said earlier, people in the room don't get to go in a breakout room. So we're kind of violating the thing that he said about breakout rooms not being a good idea. So we are sending you to your breakout rooms, and we won't be there.
So Gloria Grossblatt is sharing her screen. You're sure why she's doing that.
There we go. There we go. That's what we want. There we go. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, take it away, Jack.
All right, I'm back. So now we have an idea of how you set the equipment up following our cheap and easy model here at Ashby Village. And I hope we've provided some facilitation considerations and best practices for you to consider. Now we're at the part of the program where you get to find out what this means to you and discuss amongst yourselves some of the ways in which you might choose to use the hybrid meetings. And at the end of the breakout, we're going to ask for one person to be designated as your speaker and to ask either one question or comment or issue or situation that you want to share with us at the end. This is your part. This is America's favorite radio station, WIIFM. What's in it for me? So we have some breakout rooms that we're going to give you, and we've already divided you up into groups. And there are some sample questions that you can read as well as I about how you might use it and what equipment questions you might have, any technical questions you have, any burning questions that you could come up with. And you'll have about 10 minutes to discuss amongst yourselves. We won't hear you, so you can
Assign manually.
We're in the process of setting this up.
Manually.
No, I set it up yesterday.
Okay. So Craig tells me we should get a pop-up that you can respond to, and you'll get a warning when your breakout room is about to end and you will be reconvened with the rest of the group here. So where are we, Craig? We decided to do this experiment just so you could have a chance to see as well. I'm going to ask someone from each one of the rooms to provide their feedback. So I'm going to go room by room, and we didn't assign a note taker, but maybe somebody from room 1 might be willing to share their comments or questions.
Jack, I think Taria
Looks like
is raising her hand.
right there, so go right ahead.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I don't believe you that it was an experiment, but anyway, a class in how to use breakout rooms would be in order. I don't remember the number of the room I was in. I was in several, but people are real interested in getting this hybrid meeting format going in their local village. And there's a pretty good level of confidence, although not really enough. We need to be able to consider how this could be helped by intergenerational organizing. You know, a lot of times you find some college student or even some teenagers that know how to use these products quite well. And then you'll develop expert knowledge in your village, the way Ashby Village has developed quite a bit of really good knowledge on how to do the hybrid meeting. Everyone commented, everyone was looking forward to being involved and having a learning curve where they're going to be able to get it. That's it.
Thank you. Anyone else raise their hand? Anybody from room 2? Or who thought they were in room 2? Meryl.
I think I was in room 4. In our room, again, I apologize to the group for not showing my video, but as Jack mentioned, I had a fall, and so I'm hiding behind my black and white tile here. We had a wonderful conversation in room 4. It appears that Pasadena Village is about where Ashby Village is in development of a model, and it has different components. It also projects to a screen rather than to a monitor. So there's some striking and interesting differences that they've finally got it working. They're very proud of what they've got. So Katie said they'll be working on writing it up. So there'll be at least two village models available as resources. It was a great conversation.
Thank you, Merle. I see another hand.
Yeah.
Is it Annika, Anderson Valley Village? Okay, we had a great talk too. One of the things that we haven't tried it yet in Anderson Valley, but one of the things I anticipate being a challenge is that if we're gonna do in-person gatherings, most of the board members feel more comfortable doing it outside. So, you know, we're gonna have to set up this hybrid system outside, extension cords and the TV and all that stuff. I'm just kind of worried about background noise. The one spot where we can do it is next to a fairly busy highway. I mean, obviously we could try to find a better spot to do it potentially, but we'd have to consider it parking and accessibility and internet, which can be a challenge up here. So I don't know if there was any tips or if it's just not possible. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
That's the fascinating challenge. Anyone else from room 3? Nobody? Just raise your hand. Room 4?
4 we did.
Room 5?
we did.
Room 5? Is that empty?
That's Greg.
Oh. Room 6? 6 was empty. 7? 8? 9? 10? Anyway, we have a hand. Oh, back to Merrill.
Oh, there's another,
And another one.
Patrick.
Patrick.
Brown.
Yeah, I don't know who's going to start first. I think I was actually in room 1. I was paying a lot of attention. There were 4 of us. One of the things that we were chatting about was the desire to hold hybrid meetings, somewhat larger hybrid meetings, where we would have the potential to have maybe a dozen people in a room, maybe more, and then have a dozen online. Or more. And the online people seems pretty straightforward. That's pretty much what a Zoom meeting is all about, because presumably they would all have their laptops. But how to configure to provide a good experience for the 12, 16 that are in the room, in the single room. And that was part of our question.
Well, you can have multiple microphones if you have a large conference table, and that's what the mixer is for. And you can also have multiple cameras. You can have one, we have one main camera, and then we have an iPhone serving as a second camera that's just a client, it's just a remote Zoom. So you could conceivably have multiple, iPhones or Android phones if you wanted like 3 or 4 cameras on the entire venue.
And does each camera have to have its own instance of Zoom?
Yeah, it'll just log into Zoom like you're logged into Zoom right now, and yeah, it'll just be a tile like you're a tile. Yeah, the nice thing about the in-room camera is that when the in-room microphone picks up something going on in the room, it lights up the tile that the in-room camera has. And so unfortunately, other phones that are pointed at the same meeting will not do that, because what you'll be doing is you'll be turning off the audio on those other phones to avoid feedback. So there's only, unfortunately, one audio connection, but you can have multiple video connections to at least give you a lay of what the entire venue looks like.
Okay.
Thanks.
Meryl?
Well, actually, my comment was related to Patrick's. Greg from Terra Santa had reported that they piloted a meeting with 20 or so people in the room and 30 or so people on Zoom, and audio of the people in the room was a problem for the people on Zoom. And so we talked about multiple mics, and I assured Greg that in the guide that Craig has prepared, the multiple mic model is described. But there's one scenario that we haven't piloted yet, and that is if there were a substantial number of people in the room, an option is to have somebody manually moving a camera to capture a speaker so that you can get around the room, and maybe not everyone would be shown in the tiles. The heads would be so small, it might even be, no matter how many cameras, it might be difficult. That's a model that's worth piloting for your situation, Patrick.
Okay, go ahead,
Okay. Any others?
Howard.
Howard?
Yeah, another way of handling multiple cameras is to have a little video switcher. There are a number of switchers on the market that take up to 4 cameras, and they would plug into your computer just like one webcam. And you can have a person actually switching from one camera to second camera, third camera, fourth camera. So you could do a multiple camera presentation. These video switchers cost anywhere from $200 to $300. And so if you have that in your budget, that would be another way to do multiple cameras.
Thank you.
Another hand.
Another hand?
I had another comment. I really like this discussion about how to work in the room where people are in person, because I attended a hybrid meeting not too long ago where some of the people only were addressing the people in the room, and actually you couldn't hear them on the Zoom. Somebody else who was more conscious of the hybrid had to repeat what was being said by somebody in the room who was only talking around the table. So that's something to pay attention to, is the human dynamic of how it comes together.
Yes, I absolutely agree with you. But that's the challenge of tying together the conference room and the Zoom sessions. Excellent point. Greg?
Yeah, I just want to mention in regards to the multiple cameras, if I remember correctly, if you have 2 or more cameras connected to your Zoom, I believe it's in the upper right-hand corner, you'll get, maybe on the left side, I don't remember now, you'll get an icon that lets you switch to cameras. You don't need to get a mixer for that.
Oh.
That's great. I didn't know that.
Yeah, someone pointed that out to me recently.
Yeah, you can have, you can have multiple, cameras show up on the USB port and switch between the cameras. You can do that right inside of Zoom.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
Microphones too, if you want to switch from one microphone to the other.
Oh, good to know.
So it looks like the time on the wall says we need to start doing our wrap up. Thank you all again for your patience and support. Carol?
Okay, it's can we get back to the slides, please? Okay, so thank you all very much for participating and being so tolerant of these glitches. As we had said earlier, we will be sending you a guide, and we're just going to show you what the guide consists of. Do you have that right there, Craig? I'm not sure if you do.
Yeah.
I have a question while you're looking for that.
Yeah.
When you send out the guide tomorrow, is it possible to get a roster of who was attending today, so we can find out how large their groups are? I have a funny feeling that some of these groups have a lot more members than our group, and when I'm hearing about some of these budgets, I really would love to be able to speak to somebody and find out just how large their villages are.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can definitely send a participant list. If anyone doesn't want to be included in that list for any reason, they should let us know at this email address within the next 24 hours.
And if you have any idea of what the membership is of those groups, that would really be very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, we can ask Charlotte about that. So we'll be sending the guide, includes not only the slides that we used today, but also the content of what was spoken during those slides somewhat. I mean, obviously it's not exactly word for word, but there's text along with each slide that you didn't always see on the screen. So the important thing is this email address. This is how you contact us for further consultations. So we didn't say very much about the multiple microphone setup, for example. You might want to ask for a consultation with Craig on setting that up, for example. So we have the guide, we have the video, and we will save the chat and compile it into some understandable document that we can also send you, rather than send you the raw chat, but we'll try and compile it into some sensible sequence. We will be sending you a post-evaluation survey, and of course we very much want your feedback. And we know you want us to tell us not to use breakout rooms ever again, so that's a given. We got to know your thoughts on the presentation. I hope myself that we'll be doing it again, because in 2 months or 3 months, we will have learned a whole lot more, as we're only just at the beginning of this adventure. And so I'll just turn it over to Charlotte now for our closing remarks.
Meryl's got her hand up.
Well, I want to thank Ashby Village, and I want to thank all of you for the work you're doing to keep our members and volunteers and community connected to each other. And I am going to go away from this really holding the information that I got from the call, and also just recognizing that this is hard and we make mistakes and there's a lot for us to learn. I like Taria's suggestion about having some kind of training around using breakout rooms. I'm thinking maybe we could have someone from the outside do that, or one of you could get really good at it and then train the rest of us. And then I also am taking away this question about large Zoom gatherings. So there may be more that we could do together to lift all of us up so that we can reach more people across the state. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Save the chat.
Yeah, just did.
Did you save the chat? Did you save the chat?
Thank you, everybody.
If you're recording, it will save. When you go to the folder that has the Zoom recording, your chat will be in there. The other way to save the chat is to go to the bottom, the very bottom of the chat, and there are 3 little dots.
Yeah.
And you go there and it says save chat.
Okay. All right.
So those are both ways.
All right, so we're saving chat, and yeah, I'll send out links to the, I think there's 4 files that get saved. There's the closed caption, there's a chat, there's a video, and I think there's an audio only transcript as well. So I'll send that out when that's available.
Okay.
Good job, you all. Good job.
Really good job.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
All right. So we're up.